good morning, good evening, ladies, and good morning to our friends in Australia, and a special welcome to everyone who is here for the first time. Tonight's learning is dedicated in honor of a Refuah Shalema, a quick and complete healing for Etta Bas Carol and for Emuna Bas Ariella. And they should have, a complete and speedy healing beyond, in a miraculous way, beyond your expectations. Thank you, Etty, for your support. And you should really see revealed brachas. Okay, tonight is our first week back from a very long break, and there are quite a few people who are joining us for the first time. So I thought long and hard about how to begin, about where to begin, because I want everyone who is new here to feel at home and not overwhelmed. And at the same time, I also want to respect the time of everyone who's been here for a while. So I apologize if what I'm going to say tonight is repetitive, something you heard already from me before. And it's going to be a general introduction, which we already did before. And Be'ezus Hashem, next week, we'll be back on track with part 2 of the book, which we never did before. Okay, so to start, I want to tell you about something that happened to Bayla, and just so I hope to speak Be'ezus Hashem for not more than 20 minutes, and then we'll open the lines for interactive discussion. So here's something that happened to Bayla. It was a little situation that she found quite upsetting, and I think it would be upsetting to any one of us. Bayla was going to a wedding of a new colleague. She was working in a new place, and the wedding was far out. She didn't have a way to get there. She needed a ride. She was picked up. She was in a rush before she was leaving. She gets to the wedding, and as she's walking into the door, her face literally, and she saw the mirror walking in on her way in, her face literally turned white because she realized she got a phone call while she was in the middle of putting on her makeup, and she only put makeup on one eye. And she put a lot of makeup on that one eye. And it really, she looked at herself and she looked funny. And she was so embarrassed. It was so awkward. And she was with her friend. Her friend was like, oh, it's okay. But she wanted to go through the floor. Raise your hand if that, something like that ever happened to you. If you came to a wedding and you had a run in your tights or a stain on your dress or mismatched shoes. I think these things happen. But Bayla was really mortified. And the whole evening, she could not let go of that image of it. Like, she was just embarrassed. It was like a badge of shame that she wore throughout the night. And she came home in a bad mood. She was so unsettled and uneasy. And if you meet her and ask her why, what happened? What went wrong that night? Why didn't she enjoy herself? She'll tell you that it's because of what she was wearing. She'll tell you, I had a miserable night because of what I was wearing. But I want to challenge that. I want to challenge that because the same exact thing happened to Chani. But Chani's experience of that same situation was completely different. You see, when Chani looked into the mirror, and of course I'm making it up, but it could have happened, right? Could have happened. When Chani looked in the mirror, she burst out laughing. She found it absolutely funny. She couldn't stop laughing. She really found it funny. She didn't like how she looked. She was not proud of how she looked. She was, she throughout the night, she kind of felt a need to explain herself to people. By the way, I'm not, I'm a makeup artist. She's not, but I had a phone call. I was busy. She wasn't proud of how she looked, but she did not feel embarrassed. It was not like a badge of shame. It did not ruin her life. It was just another part of being as busy as she was. It didn't say anything negative about her. She still felt beautiful. She knew she's beautiful. She did not feel weird or uncomfortable. So we cannot say that the situation, the occurrence, the circumstances ruined Bayla's evening, right? Because for something to be a rule, for something to be true, it has to be true for everyone. For example, water makes everyone wet. If you go out in the rain, or if I go out in the rain, or if anyone goes out in the rain, we will get wet, or our raincoat or our umbrella will get wet. It's true for anyone. But here, and that's why we know it's a rule, water makes you wet. But here, Bayla was upset in the situation, but Chani wasn't. So it's not the situation that caused Bayla to be upset. If the situation would have that power, it would ruin anyone's night, just like rain gets everyone wet. So Bayla's experience of the situation, her embarrassment, it's not a clear-cut rule that is absolutely true and applies to everyone. So there must be something else at play over here. And that thing is something that we could change. And when we change that thing, we could actually change our experience. But I'm getting ahead of myself. And let's go back for a second. It was not the situation that caused Bayla's discomfort. It was something else. So what was it? What could it have been? Okay. We're gonna talk about how it was her belief about herself within that situation. It wasn't that she was wearing makeup on only one eye that made her feel so embarrassed. It was her commentary about what that means. It was the story she built on top of that. If I look like this, I'm a real Nebuch case. I'm a nerd. I'm a loser. I don't belong. Something's wrong with me. I'm a misfit, right? My daughter gave me this wonderful analogy of a cup of coffee. Imagine if you're walking down the street and you're holding a cup of coffee. And you're holding that cup of coffee, and as you're walking, someone bumps into you, and the cup of coffee spills all over you. Thank God it's not hot, you don't get burned, but you get wet. And what made you wet? If I'm going to ask you, what made you wet? What made your dress get full of coffee? Our instinctive reaction is, well, somebody bumped into me. Of course, that's why I got wet. But if we think about it, there's something else. It's not just that somebody bumped into me. It's that I was holding a cup of coffee. If I would not have been holding that cup of coffee, I would not get wet with the coffee. Now, we all bump into situations, and situations bump into us. People bump into us. Difficult people bump into us. Complicated, all kinds of situations and people meet up with us, and we find ourselves encountering them. And we're holding a cup. What's in our cup? Whatever is in our cup is going to make us wet. Situations do not create a one-size-fits-all response. Each of us has different responses to the same situations. And that's because a situation can only reinforce or remind us of what we already are holding in our cup, right? We're gonna get wet. If I'm holding muddy water, and you bump into me, or a situation bumps into me, I'm gonna get wet with muddy water. If I'm holding coffee, I'll get wet with coffee. So our beliefs in our mind are in our Yiddish cup, in our heads, and then we're walking around with them. And when we bump into situations, or when situations bump into us, we're gonna get wet from whatever is in our cup, from whatever we already believe about ourselves. So situations can only reinforce or remind us of what we already believe about ourselves. And since we believe different things about ourselves, that's why we all have different experiences of the same exact situations. You see, Bayla never respected herself to begin with, right? Her self-respect depended on her external looks. Most of us, I think, could relate to that. I know I could relate to that, right? But imagine if Bayla would truly respect herself. Imagine if she would know that she is beautiful, if she would trust her friends not to judge her negatively because she's so secure of how she looks. She knows she's not a nerd. She knows she's not a loser. She knows she's not a misfit. She knows she belongs. She knows it in her bones, right? She doesn't doubt it. If she would have unconditional respect for herself, then she would have an experience like Hani did. Her self-respect would not fly away just because she didn't put on her makeup properly. Okay, now I know this is a big idea. So if you're new and feeling a little bit overwhelmed, Be'ezus Hashem, we will be reviewing this idea again and again over the next couple of weeks in different ways. And if you keep coming back, you'll keep developing a deeper understanding of this idea, and especially how it relates to you and how you can get a handle of those beliefs, and through that, change your experiences, because that's really the bottom line of all that we're saying. It's that our beliefs have a huge impact on how we experience every story in our lives, and especially our beliefs about ourselves. So take a moment just now, take a moment to think, take a moment to reflect about this for just a minute. What are you holding in your cup? Is it coffee? Is it muddy water? What do you believe about yourself? What are some of the rules that need to be met before you could respect yourself? How often or how severely do you judge yourself negatively? When you talk to yourself in your mind, Do you speak kindly? Do you beat yourself up? And when you beat yourself up, do you console yourself? Do you realize that it's not okay to beat yourself up? Or is it only not okay to beat up other people, right? Imagine if your cup was filled with beautiful, refreshing, invigorating, rejuvenating water instead of mud. If Bayla would not have the mud in her cup, she would have had a much better time that night, right? If she would really believe that she's respectable no matter what, if she wouldn't judge herself so negatively, if she wouldn't decide, hey, something's wrong with me, if I can go out of my house with makeup on only one eye, something is seriously wrong with me, and I am shameful. I belong in the corner. I don't belong. I don't have a respectable place in this society, right? But her night, that's just a little tiny story. For most of us, if only we could change our beliefs about ourselves, it's not one night that would be different. It's our whole life that would be different in a really good way. Our relationships would be different. We would not have so much stress. We wouldn't feel so sorry for ourselves all the time. We could engage in our relationships from a place of dignity, of courage, of self-respect. When we change the way we see ourselves, it's like strengthening the foundation of a building. It's not just one detail that's changed. The whole structure gets stronger. Our whole lives get better. Everything gets an upgrade. Nothing stays the same. And that's what we are after here tonight in this conversation, in this community. And the reason why I'm calling it a community, and the reason why we need each other to do this, we'll get to that soon. First, I want to connect it to a different idea, which is also a very important and big idea. How do we get there? How do we get to believe that we are unconditionally worthy and respectable, right? Because I know that, for most of my life, I would beat myself up. I had dirty, dirty mud in my cup that I was always carrying around, and that I was always getting wet with. I was very often stuck in a puddle of shame and indignity, and that led to resentment and self-pity and helplessness and just feeling stuck. So how do we get there? How do we change our beliefs? You see, because when Bayla went into that wedding, her friend tried to convince her that it's okay. Nobody's judging you negatively. Don't worry, it's fine. We like you the way you are. We don't even notice. We're not so into it. But she couldn't get her mind off of it. Nobody could convince her. And I think that you could relate to that. I mean, I know I could relate to that. When I believe that something is true, it's like, when you get a compliment, someone says, oh, you're amazing, right? For me, what comes up in my mind immediately is 229 reasons why I'm the opposite of amazing, right? That's what comes up in my mind when someone says I'm amazing. It's like, what do you mean I'm amazing, right? I'm the opposite, okay? I don't believe that. I used to, thank God, Baruch Hashem, I'm working on it. So now I do. I could forget, but I do. But we cannot convince ourselves, and nobody could convince us that we are good if we believe that we're inherently bad. Nobody could convince me that it's okay to show up, to be present at a wedding with one eye of makeup and one eye not. Nobody could give me dignity if I don't have it. Nobody could give me self-respect if I just don't believe it belongs to me. You can't give it to me if I don't have it. So how do we get it? What do you mean? I was born this way. I was born judgmental, right? Nature, nurture, whatever it is. As an adult, I don't think I'm respectable. So how do I give myself something that I don't have, that I can't get in any other way? I could only get it if I have it. I could only experience if I have it. But what if I don't have it? How do we get there? So as Yidden, we are blessed with a truth that is bigger than all of us. It's like a North Star that never changes its position. This truth is absolute. And the more we accept it, the more we connect with it, the more we identify with it and make it ours, the more it can guide us. It's like having a compass or having a map that we can actually read. We could set our own beliefs by its light. If we want to know if something I believe, is this true? Is it actually true that I'm a loser, that I'm a weirdo, that I don't belong, that something's wrong with me if I wear one eye of makeup? Well, my instinct is to ask my friends, right? Is that true? If I survey enough people, maybe I'll convince myself, right? Or maybe someone I really respect. If she says it, it must be. But that's not going to help us because, there's always going to be somebody that we really respect that thinks negatively of us and that doesn't like us. So how can we, but this truth, I'm going back to the truth that we have, that we can always rely on. It's so dependable because it's not going to change by anyone or anything. So we could set our own beliefs by its light. If we want to know if something is true or not, we don't have to survey anyone. We could just check in with this belief, with this truth, because it's absolute. And that absolute truth is Hashem. It's Hashem's presence in our lives. It's Hashem's oneness. And most importantly, and as it relates to our conversation now, it's Hashem's absolute, unconditional, unchangeable, unstoppable, untouchable dignity, value, worthiness, and respectability. Now, what does Hashem's value and respectability have to do with us? It's really everything. From when I was a teenager and well into my adult life, I was like Bayla. I believed things about myself that were hurting me. And probably with that, I was hurting other people too. But I did not realize it was my beliefs that were hurting me because I believed them. I believed them as much as we believe that rain makes you wet. I never even thought to challenge them. It was like the color of the color of the sky, I never thought I could change my beliefs. I never realized even that changing my beliefs would change my life. But then in an interesting Hashgacha Pratis, the story is too long for now, and I wrote about it in the book. But in short, I started learning a lot about Hashem in an unusual way. I started really absorbing the awesomeness of who Hashem is, of how powerful Hashem is, of how real Hashem is. And I started really believing in Hashem, thinking about Hashem more. And then slowly over time, it hit me that if Hashem is so good and so precious and so strong and so real and so respectable and awesome, and there's a part of Hashem in me, then I am awesome and I am respectable because that is the most identifying feature about me. That's who I am. And it's so big that it's not just another detail. If you put a PS at the end of a letter, it's a PS. But if the whole content of, if you write something that's really important news, even if you put it on as the PS, it's like, wait, what? That's the big idea, right? So the fact that we are carriers of a part of Hashem, the fact that we are carriers of Hashem's light, even if we came into that information and awareness in our adulthood, even if it seems to be a PS, it's so big, it's so magnified, it's so majestic, it's so awesome that it changes everything. It's like the diamond, when you put a diamond on a gold ring, the ring is no longer a ring that has a diamond on it. It's a diamond ring, right? Because the diamond is so much more precious than the gold. So it hit me that if Hashem is awesome and Hashem is respectable, and I have a part of Hashem in me that is not a PS, it's who I am at the core, it's the main part of who I am, then I'm respectable. And I'm respectable in a way that nothing and nobody could change. And no matter what else is going on in my life, that dignity, that worthiness, that respectability belongs to me in a way that nothing can change, nothing can stop. And it's forever. And since then, I've been trying to hold on to that truth. I've been working on this for a long time. And my natural response when I make a mistake, I just want to, be honest here. And I think it's important to know that just to put it in context, my natural response when I make a mistake, I am still carrying mud in my cup, okay? But I also have a cup with clean water, a big cup with clean water. I also believe the good. So with that, I'm able to pick myself up when I fall. I'm able to wash the mud off of me, to clean up the mud that lands on my head. But it's really hard, and it's hard work. Why is it so hard? Because Hashem has hidden himself in this world, right? And the outside of his hiddenness, an alternate reality appears to be true. We judge ourselves by what we see. We judge ourselves by our looks, by our social status, by how many people like us or don't like us, by who likes us or doesn't like us, by the house we live in, by the money we have, by the job we have, by what our family is like, by everything but the truth of who we really are. Because the truth is hidden, right? We don't see Hashem. We don't see our neshama. In the absence of seeing Hashem and in the absence of seeing our neshama, we judge ourselves and other people by our external qualities. And so we buy into, it's like, and tell me if you could relate to this, okay? It's like, yes, Hashem is true. Yes, Hashem is respectable. But Lamaisa, if you're in Borough Park, this is your word. But Lamaisa, right? But practically speaking, let's get real over here. And then we go into this whole thing of how in that rest of the sentence, the but, we relegate Hashem to the bin of irrelevance. It's like, yes, Hashem is respectable, but Lamaisa, you need a good job to be respectable. You need a good family to be respectable, right? Yes, we know that Hashem never changes, and therefore your respectability never changes. But practically speaking, if you make a mistake, yes, you're an idiot, and you should feel ashamed, right? So we buy into that illusion of Hashem's irrelevance because Hashem is hidden, and we live in that world. So naturally, this is what happens to us. And I want to share this story with Rabbi Twersky that Rabbi Twersky told me, which is such a phenomenal story. Rabbi Twersky, Rabbi Dr. Abraham Twersky, who was very helpful and supportive in getting this whole community started, getting me started on this journey. So it should be a chus for him. He told me that once he was teaching a group of doctors and nurses about how to do medically induced hypnosis, okay? And for that presentation, he was working with somebody, a nurse by the name of Betty. I think I might be mixing up the names Betty and Carol. One was the friend and one was the person he was working with. Let's say he was working with Betty, okay? So Betty, he called up Betty and he was doing all kinds of, he was putting her into a medically induced hypnosis, and she was very conducive to it. And she went right under, if I could use that word. And he did things like, gave her a lemon and she said it was so sweet and different things like that. Now, Rabbi Twersky noticed that Carol was sitting in the audience. Now, Carol and Betty were really good friends. They spent every lunch break together. They really enjoyed each other's company. So Rabbi Twersky took an empty chair and he put it next to Betty. And he said, Betty, Carol is sitting next to you. The chair is empty, okay? He said, Betty, Carol is sitting next to you. She would very much like to speak with you. How about you're going out together tonight, right? So why don't you discuss your plans for the evening? So Betty starts talking to Carol and they're having this whole conversation. She's chatting. But then Rabbi Twersky saw the real Carol in the audience. And that's when he pulled her over and had her sit on the other side of Betty. And then he said, Betty, turn around. And she turned around. And as she turned around, she saw Carol sitting right next to her. And she was like shocked because she had just been speaking to Carol on her other side in that empty chair. So Rabbi or Dr. Twersky said, hey, listen, you remember this is medically induced hypnosis. I played a little trick on you, okay? One of the chairs is empty. The other chair has Carol sitting on the chair, okay? One of the chairs is empty and one of them actually has the real Carol. Betty, which chair has the real Carol? And Dr. Twersky said that without batting an eyelash, without batting an eyelash, Betty immediately turned to that empty chair and said, this is the real Carol. And When Dr. Tursky was telling me the story, he said, delusion is stronger than truth. When we believe a delusion, we hold on to it, and it holds on to us with greater force than the truth is capable of holding onto, of being held onto. And that is a huge, huge, huge obstacle. The delusion of Hashem's hiddenness. I won't say the delusion of Hashem's hiddenness, because the fact that Hashem is hidden is a fact. The delusion of Hashem's irrelevance, the illusion of our neshama's irrelevance, the illusion that makes us say, yes, Hashem is in charge of the world, or yes, Hashem is precious, and yes, my neshama is precious, but if I came 5 minutes late, then I am a loser. Now, by the way, I just want to put this out there for all those of you who can't handle what I'm saying. Everyone should come on time to every meeting. That's not what this is about, right? And we need to learn from our experiences. We need to grow from our mistakes. We need to call ourselves out on our mistakes. We need to be honest about our weaknesses and our failures and our faults. That's not what this is about. What this is about is a sense of shame and indignity and lack of self-respect that pulls us down in a way that makes moving forward very difficult, in a way that sucks the joy out of our lives, in a way that really impacts our relationships in such a negative way. The illusion of Hashem's irrelevance, of our neshama's irrelevance, is so strong. And that's why this group is so, so important and helpful, because holding on to the truth is something we cannot do it alone. If we really want to believe that we're good, if we really want to believe that we own the dignity, the respectability, the value that is really our birthright, if we really want to own it, we cannot do it alone. It doesn't happen by itself. It doesn't happen from reading a book. It doesn't happen from saying it 100 times a day, 1,000 times a day. We need each other. We need friendship. We need to be talking about it. He'emanti ki adaber, right? We say this in Hallel. He'emanti ki adaber. It's from Tehillim. I believe because I spoke about it. He'emanti, I believe ki adaber because I spoke about it. Speech creates connection. Speech creates, period. But speech creates connection. By talking about it, by working it through, by supporting each other, by seeing each other's experiences, we break that illusion. We can clearly see that this chair is empty and this is the truth. That the idea that our respectability depends on 100 things, we call it out. We see it as an illusion. And we could see the idea, the concept, the value of our unconditional value, the truth of our unconditional value. We see that, we recognize that as the truth. And that's what we're here for. And that's what we're going to be doing Be'ezus Hashem week after week. Of course, the content is different, but this is the essential work of what it's about. We want to tap into our awesome self, our awesomeness, our inner light that each of us carries. And we want to live from that place. We want to tap into that and be able to use that as a springboard for everything that we do, for every situation that we are in. We want to have that as the glasses, the lenses that color our perceptions, that create the stories of our lives, so that we could create happy stories, so that we tell happy stories, so that we tell meaningful ones, uplifting ones, inspiring ones, not just on random days, not just because someone else, gives it to us or does something for us, which is always nice, but because we can generate it from within our own selves. Now I want to open up to questions, comments, sharing. I would love if anybody has an experience with this. If you're on this call, you're here, if you've been here before, and you could share, give a gift to everybody who's here for the first time, and you could give a gift to the newcomers and share your experience with this. How big situation? It could be a little story, a little snippet of life, we would love to hear. Anybody want to share? I'm gonna, while we're waiting, while you're thinking about it, I'm gonna go to the chat and check out the questions if there's any there. Wow, that is amazing. So so I want, if it's okay with you, I'm gonna just share this for the recording because it's too good to pass up, right? So Estee's sharing that she exercised in a wig that like was, I'm going to call it Esty Ratty. Is that okay? It's like, you know, that kind of wig that you're not really, it's just for exercise, right? It's just to cover your head. It's not pretty, but it's comfortable for exercise. And she forgot that she's having company. And she was wearing that when the company arrived. And she was able to laugh because it was funny to find herself in an awkward looking wig. But she said, and she said it better than I could say it, but she said something like, well, I'm not going to let this wig, you know, it's not going to make me, it's okay. It's not who I am. My smile is what matters. I'm what matters. It's okay. And she didn't, and it didn't get her down. And she said 2 years ago, before she started doing all of this work, she would not even have the awareness to realize, hey, I am judging myself, therefore I feel bad about myself. It would just kind of be like an uneasy feeling and a heavy feeling, like being down on herself. Again, she said it much better, but I hope that does a little bit, gives a little bit of taste of what that was. Thank you, Esty. That was a gift to everyone. I really appreciate it. Go ahead. Excellent question. So how do we measure and how do we balance this idea of being kind to ourselves, right? And being honest about our mistakes and our weaknesses and our failures. How do we take responsibility for our mistakes and enough to change them without, you know, without judging ourselves negatively? I want to say it in a different way than Rivka, you said it very elegantly. A lot of times what people say is, well, if I stop beating myself up, then how will I ever change? How will I ever grow? It's only because I'm hard on myself that I drive myself to be better. And so to that, I want to ask everybody to really be honest. Everybody in this room, at least, I mean, I think so, okay? I'm going out on a limb here. Challenge me if I'm wrong on this, okay? I think that everybody in this room has one habit, at least one habit, that you have been beating yourself up about for years and you still haven't changed, right? Well, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. I know I have certain habits that I have been beating myself up about and I haven't changed until I was compassionate to myself, until I started respecting myself. That enabled me to change. I'll tell you why this is true. You only show up in a way that you believe you can show up, right? If I don't believe I'm capable of more, I will not do more. When we beat ourselves up, when we beat ourselves up, not in a way of, see, there's a difference between you're wrong or your behavior was wrong. You made a mistake or you are a mistake. That's the difference. And I think we have to be very clear about that. No matter what mistake we made, we are never the mistake. And we have to talk to ourselves in a way that honors that truth. Because if I am a mistake, then it doesn't matter what I do. Then what I do when I do after I beat myself up, will always be worse than what I did before I beat myself up. What I do after I beat myself up will be exactly the thing I promised I would never do. Okay, think about the binging. Think about, you know, going to the freezer and having that extra whatever of ice cream or chocolate or getting onto your phone and doing whatever you don't want to do on your phone, or go shopping in a way you don't want to shop after you have really, really beat yourself up to the point that you feel horrible about yourself. That doesn't get you to change. It doesn't get us to change. What gets us to change is believing we can change. That's a prerequisite for change, is believing we could do it. We won't do it if we don't think we can. So it's very important to take responsibility for our behavior. But I think part of what, in my own experience, What enabled me to take real responsibility for my behavior is believing that I'm a good person. Once I believe I'm a good person, then bad behaviors or, I don't want to use even the word bad, but like this behavior doesn't fit with me. It just doesn't belong to me. I don't want to be doing it because it's not mine. It's my old self. It's not the person I want to be. It's not the person I really am. It gave me that strength to let go. I hope that answers your question. Somebody asked here something really, really good. There's actually a few really good questions on the chat. I've been trying to look at reality this way and hard to get Hashem's reality as me being awesome into my serious thinking. And somebody else said it this way: I'm reading the book, I believe it, but in real life, I see my flaws and my labels as more real. Welcome to the club. Welcome to our community. Welcome to being human, okay? That is what this work is about, because we all are. Why? Because very often our what we know in our bodies, what we know in our bones is different from what we know in our minds. Okay, my daughter was just telling me about something that she saw or watched or read, that somebody shared with her this experience that they did an experiment with alternate reality, with virtual reality glasses or headset. Like you see and you hear, when you put on this headset, you feel like you're in a different place. So now these people, it was a group of people, they're in a room, okay, and the room has a solid, good, strong floor. But before they put on the virtual reality glasses, headsets, they knew that when they put them on, it's going to feel as if they are standing at the edge of the rooftop of a high-rise building. And the challenge is to take a step forward. When they take a step forward, nothing would happen. They're in a room on a solid floor, right? But in the virtual reality, taking a step forward would make it look like they just jumped off the roof of a high-rise building. It was a group of about 12 people in that room trying this experience. Not one person was able to take that one tiny step. Not one person. Now their minds knew this is just virtual reality. We are actually standing on firm ground. We could take a step, nothing is going to happen in actual life. But none of them could do it, because what happens in virtual reality, what you see and what you hear sends messages to your brain in an automatic way that's beyond your control. Your body knows whatever your body sees and hears. And your head knows, but it doesn't impact your body. Your body knows whatever your eyes see and whatever your ears hear. So these people, they were all intelligent, intellectual, educated people, but their minds knew this is just a virtual reality experience. Nothing's actually going to happen. But none of them could take that step. None of them could take that step, because what their mind knew and their hearts felt were two different things. Their bodies felt what their bodies saw. And I love, when she told me that, I was like, oh my, that's such a good way of understanding ourselves, because we all know about Hashem, right? We know about Hashem in our heads. We know about our neshama in our heads. We know that Hashem is the only power. Hashem is unconditionally respectable, and we have that dignity, and we're carriers of his light, and all that good stuff. It's inspiring, beautiful. I know it in my head, but my body sees something else. My body has a different experience. And so I cannot take that step. I cannot lean on my awesomeness. I cannot lean onto my dignity. I can't tap into it. I can't hold it, because my body is seeing and feeling and touching something entirely different. And so again, that's what this experience of coming together in a room does for us. Because when we're here every week, we are going to be talking about Hashem's awesomeness and our own awesome self. That's exactly what we're going to be talking about. The content is always going to be the same. The way we're going to experience it, or rather, the way we're going to experience this truth in our lives, the way this truth or these truths will change our experiences of life, that is going to be totally new every single week. And of course, we're also going to learn we're going to talk about practical strategies. Every week we'll come home with a little bit of homework, a little something, a little way that we could proactively connect or reactively connect throughout the week. But hearing and seeing other people's experiences is transformational. It does to our bodies what our mind could never do to our bodies, and what no book could do. And that's the power of the community. That's why we're here, because we need each other. And I know that, like what Esty shared before, it means so much to me, because that's everything, right? It sounds like a little story, right? I was wearing a wig that was not pretty and I felt good anyway. That doesn't mean that tomorrow when she has company, she's not going to put on her better wig. Of course she will. It just means that her dignity is not so easily destroyed. It's not so flimsy that it could be washed away with the rain or with the weather or with, somebody's rolling of their eyes. It's okay. And I just want to put it out there. When we feel insecure, we're much more defensive. When we feel, not good about ourselves, we more quickly move into fight or flight mode in our relationships. And that's very destructive. Like we'll talk about that more next week, because next week's topic is about how to let go of resentments, blame, and guilt. And that's in connection with Hashem's power. Malki, that is an incredible story. Somebody insulted you. You teach health and nutrition, and PTA, a parent walks up, and you're not a size 2, but you're not. I would not call you overweight, okay? But a parent walks through the door and says, "Oh my, you're the teacher of health and nutrition? I thought you would be tall and slender." And instead of totally feeling awkward and feeling knocked down, Malki says, "Oh, wow, well, there's more to love." And I think that's amazing. That is amazing. You see, if I would feel insulted, and it would be totally normal to feel insulted, right? In the same world where we say, yeah, Hashem has all the value, but Lamaisa, but practically speaking, I'm gonna feel insulted. Yeah, you're gonna feel insulted. Now what, right? Now what? Doesn't help you. In that same world, it would be normal to feel insulted, and it's inescapable, it's unavoidable, that you can't help it. You're gonna feel insulted. It's gonna be awkward. And from that place, it would be normal to go into fight or flight mode and to say something, I don't know, I would say something negative back. I would say, what? Like, that's so rude, or something like that, like it would be, and that's a never ending spiral of negativity, of toxicity, of dysfunctional relationships. But here, she didn't take it. That lady said something negative, but there was nothing in Malki's mind. There was no muddy water to spill. The muddy in her own mind. The muddy water was in someone else's cup. It was not in her cup. So it landed on her, but it was easily washed off. And it didn't make that kind of difference that really got deep into her skin. Obviously, Malki, it made enough of an impression that you remember it, that you're sharing it, and that's totally human, because none of this work is about stopping to be human. All of this is about not allowing our humanness to limit us. That's all, right? So it's not about stopping to be human. It's about not letting our humanness, our limitations, get in our way of having beautiful, authentic, thriving relationships and happy, productive, meaningful, satisfying lives. Okay, that was great, Malki. Thank you. So daily reading is definitely good. That's what you're saying. Daily exercise, daily affirming. But Bayla, I want to, people don't know you. You have a really good friend that you talk about these things with. So for everyone who doesn't have that good friend, we need the community more. Like, if you have a really good friend that is on the same page and you're reading the book with her and you're discussing it with her, or you're reading, Shar HaBitachon, Achevas Halabavos, and you're talking about Hashem and the struggle of connecting and holding on to the truth and, really applying it and letting go of the lies that we believe about ourselves, that we've always believed for so many years. If you have a good friend to do that with, that's amazing, Yes. See, most people think that if you are feeling hurt, then the person you're standing next to probably hurt you, you know? But the fact is that just because I am feeling hurt doesn't mean you did something hurtful, right? Maybe you did something wrong. That's between you and Hashem, or that's for, for you to judge, or for someone else. It's not for me to judge. It's not going to help me. For me feeling hurt, I want to also be able to examine what was my contribution to that mess. What do I believe about myself that is so hurtful to me? And that doesn't mean we excuse or tolerate or perpetuate chas v'shalom abuse and dysfunction. It's a totally, that's not. I just have to put it out there. That's not what we want to do, right? At the same time, we don't want to tolerate or perpetuate our own abuse of ourselves, our own beating up of ourselves, walking around for so many years again and again and again with this muddy water. It doesn't even belong to us. We picked it up somewhere along the way, and doesn't belong to us.
We had some technical difficulties with our Zoom recording. It shut down towards the end, so I am re-recording the end of our conversation. And here are 3 things that everybody could take home and start doing these things so that you could immediately start experiencing the changes that we've been talking about tonight. And of course, it's hard to implement everything, but I hope that at least one of these 3 things you'll be able to do. And if it feels overwhelming, it feels like a lot, or if it feels like it's not really making a difference, or you don't really understand what this is all about, I want to encourage you to either speak personally with somebody who's already been doing this work, or come back again next week, ask your questions, and let's take it from there. Or you could send your questions to sterna@energizedliving.org, and then we could be proactive about it, and I could try to build your question into next week's planned part of the conversation. Okay, so here are 3 things you could do starting right now, today. Number 1 is think about Hashem proactively in your life, not just as you say the words. For example, when you say Shema every day, and if we don't say Shema, then it's a good idea to implement at least some part of davening, whether it's the morning brachas or Shema or Adonai Lam. Start with Shema, because that's the quintessential expression of Hashem's presence in our lives, and that's the ultimate expression of Jewish faith. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Listen, Yisrael, Hashem is our power, and He is one. So just as you're saying those words, think about in your own words what it means. Allow yourself to be present with that idea that Hashem is real, Hashem is here, Hashem is with me in my life. And also, do the same thing for thinking about and forming a connection in your mind with your neshama. So when you wake up in the morning, take 10 seconds to say Maida Ani. It's a meditation. It's not just a prayer. It's really something that we want to absorb. We want to be present with that concept that right this minute, the fact that I'm alive means that Hashem is at this very moment investing a part of Himself within me, giving me a part of Hashem, a part of Himself to carry and be carried by wherever I go today and whatever I do today. And that was number 1. Think about Hashem proactively. Think about your neshama proactively, not just in a thought like, a mantra that you repeat, but really being present with that idea, allowing it to be absorbed in your mind and heart. Number 2 is make a connection with action. If you already observe Torah and mitzvahs, there are so many things that you do in your life that already affirm, that are mitzvahs, that already are a space where you are activating a connection with Hashem and with your neshama. And if you don't already do mitzvahs, there are so many, even if you are not Torah observant and you're listening to this, and there still are so many ways in your day that you already connect with Hashem's power. For example, when we give a coin to tzedakah, to charity, and we that's our way of saying, hey, all my belongings don't belong to me. It's all a gift from Hashem. I am the banker. I am here. Hashem's entrusting me with this money or with this talent or with this skill or with this knowledge. And it's mine only to share and to give. And ultimately, it belongs to Hashem. So just connecting what you already are doing an act of kindness. So wow, it's, I'm letting Hashem's light flow through me to another person. Stopping before you walk into your home, touching that mezuzah, bringing your hands to your lips. Think about for a moment, Hashem is at this very moment protecting me, embracing me, holding me. He is here with me. That is the message of the mezuzah on our door. And it's the same thing when we say a bracha. Everybody who says brachas, we before we eat, and if you're not Torah observant, this is a beautiful thing to start with in your day, just to acknowledge that the food that we're eating comes from Hashem, and to say a blessing over it, to uplift that experience of eating, to sanctify it, to really make it out of the ordinary into an experience of connection. When we just say the words shahakol niyeh b'dvarei, that everything's, or if it's your nusach to say shahakol niyeh b'dvarei, everything exists because Hashem is at this very moment animating it. I'm about to eat this food, I'm about to drink this water, and I take a moment to pause and connect and reflect and be one with this idea that this water is Hashem's gift to me in this moment. And everything in my life is a gift from Hashem to me in this moment. Imagine if we do this a couple of times during the day, proactively, we are forming a connection. So that was number 2. Connect the actions that you are already doing. Be present with that action, with the fact that this action is a connection between Hashem and you, between your neshama and you. Let it flood, let it fill your consciousness. Let the action, let your awareness of Hashem fill your consciousness as you take that action. And with that, you're rewiring your brain to be more conscious of Hashem's presence in your life with the actions that you're already doing. And the third thing, and this is something really important, the third thing is to, throughout the day, we all do this. We tell ourselves all kinds of commentary as we are experiencing our day. And we especially talk to ourselves about ourselves in our mind. We call ourselves names. We give ourselves judgments. We pronounce, we declare who we are, what we're all about, all the time throughout our day. The third thing is to listen out for that voice in which we are judging ourselves, in which we are labeling ourselves, in which we are defining our reality, the commentary to our story, how we're describing our story to ourselves, and especially how we are describing ourselves to ourselves. Listen out to that voice. Notice the negativity. Notice the judgment. Ultimately, what we want to do is be able to do is to say, hey, to notice that when I'm saying, let's say, for example, I'm a loser, we want to challenge ourselves. We want to say, hey, really? Am I a loser? Is it possible that I have this unconditional respectability and yet I am deciding that I'm not respectable because I burnt the cookies or because I made a mistake in something that I said or didn't say? Really? We want to challenge ourselves and then be able to decide what is the truth we want to live by, we want to live with. And every time we do that, we're adding another layer of connection, another layer of awareness, another thread of strength to the bond that we want to acquire in our consciousness with Hashem's truth, and with the truth of our neshama. So those are the 3 things. Start somewhere, start anywhere. And the most important, the common thread of all of these things is that to really be more conscious of Hashem, to really be more conscious of our neshama as we go through our day. So I want to wish everyone a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you again next week in Mitzvah Hashem Wednesday nights.